you just have to cut off like the first minute or few minutes of the
of the
stream. Yeah.
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
recording,
the
by the way.
first.
Hello.
Okay, yeah, recording. So, hello, my beautiful YouTube people. Just earlier this week, Englander told me that although he does his best to be an avid Christian, he's not actually read the Old Testament from beginning to the end yet. So, and well, I've never quite done the same thing either. So, I thought it would be a very good education for the both of us, and hopefully for all of you, all 90 something or other
Soon to be
of you
thousand.
people. Yeah. Hopefully soon to be thousand of you beautiful YouTube people. We thought that perhaps you would like to be with us as we read Holy Bible, beginning in the first book of Moses called Genesis. The one I shall
Yes. And before
shall
we
try to
start,
be.
which version is this? Is this the King James version?
This is the King James version. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints King James version, which I believe is the same as the King James version, except like I believe it's all the same words. I think the verses might just be broken down slightly different, like they might be slightly shorter or something.
Yeah.
Like a slightly larger number of slightly shorter verses or something like that. I don't actually know though.
Well, we'll see how much we can get through then this episode. Do you want to kick off then?
Absolutely, yes. In the beginning, wait a minute, no, forgot about the what's this called? The preface, the what do you call this bit at the beginning? The summary, I guess. God creates earth and heaven and all forms of life in 6 days. Creative acts of each day are described. God creates man, both male and female, in his own image. Man is given dominion over all things, and is commanded to multiply and fill the earth. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Shall you read now?
No, carry on.
I believe that we are going to try and alternate. Oh, okay.
I'm all meant like
The earth was
you do a
without
whole
form
verse and then I take over.
okay. You did do a whole verses. Did you see the first verse is just in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I mean chapter.
Oh, chapter. Okay, yeah, one chapter at a time. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Genesis especially
otherwise,
has
otherwise
rather
we'd be
short chapters.
otherwise we'd be sort of juggling quite a lot.
Staggered and silly. Yes. Probably should have talked about this before we started recording.
Oh well.
I suppose that's fine. We can just cut out the silly bits. Or
Continue on.
perhaps just leave them in as amusement for our avid fans.
Mm-hmm.
In the
All 90 of
beginning,
them.
God created heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. I'll stop here for our first tangent. Are you aware of the way that the ancient Jewish people and sort of ancient Semitic peoples in general viewed the world?
No. Go on.
Basically, they had something similar to what exists in Egyptian mythology, where the ancient primordial world before creation was basically just like water.
Yeah.
Not even like an ocean with a sky above, just water everywhere.
Mm.
So, when they describe it being like without form and void, they basically are just imagining like sort of a bubble of, just like an infinite ocean in all directions.
Yeah. And sort of land was created to on top of it then.
And not on top of it,
Or sort of.
the waters were divided above and below, and
Mm.
land was placed in the
Yeah.
middle. People in the ancient world believed that the sky, the reason why it was blue, was because it was full of water.
Mm.
And that rain was basically like little holes being poked through the bubble atmosphere.
Which is fair enough really, because if you don't you know, look into it very much, it's like a fair assumption to think, well,
Yeah.
that's it's
If you don't even know that the Earth is a sphere, if you
mm,
think that the Earth is like a round frisbee-shaped disc, if you think that the Earth is the shape of a frisbee, not the shape of an orange, it's only natural to make those sorts of assumptions, isn't it?
yeah. Yes, carry on.
Oh, that's it. Yes, let's carry on. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. The evening and the morning were the first day. God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Remember what I said earlier about that, dividing the waters from the waters.
Mm,
Uh, and God made the firmament and the waters which were under the firmament, the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So remember what I said earlier about they thought the sky was made of water?
yeah, yeah.
And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
It's an interesting
And
thing
God
that
said,
people of the secular persuasion like to talk about, and why did God have to make this in 7 days rather than if he's so powerful, if he's so omnipotent, wouldn't he be able to just do it in one? Um, it's what would you say in
this whole,
response to that?
yeah, my response to that is like, well, this story is like, it's kind of a giant metaphor anyway. We
Mm,
know from looking at like sticks and rocks and things that the physical universe is like 6 billion years old.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, it's like the perception of
so like,
time is
this is
different.
sort of
It's
a metaphor anyway.
yeah,
And like, basically, it's like, no, the point of the story is that there's 7 days in the week, and that you ought to rest for at least one of those.
yeah.
Especially when you're like an ancient agricultural society where people are working like, 12-hour days.
Well, in the
It's
other,
really important to have that one day of rest,
mm, well, in the other important
that you don't just
the other
drop dead
important
the
point
way
as
that
well is
Japanese
that
people use them.
the other important point as well is that God made the world. It's quite a good big
Yeah.
takeaway from Genesis.
The point of this story is that God made the world, and that there are 7 days in a week. That's like, there's all kinds of other sort of like cool archaic stuff behind this story. But that's the bare bones of it is God made the world, and there are 7 days in a week, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure people with um, sort of double my IQ or something would be able to draw some more spiritually versed would be able to draw much more meaning out of this. But
Yeah, I was about to say, someone with double your IQ might be too arrogant to give it the
yeah,
time of day.
yeah,
It's somebody with the same IQ as you or lower, but just with a little bit more spiritual experience, maybe would.
mm. Because I'm sure
Because I
someone
mean,
with
I feel like there is. Well, I was gonna say is I feel like there is a good reason why some of the like most accomplished preachers and such in the world come from like that they're either like Irish Americans or African Americans that have only got about like 80 to 90 IQ, but they're just
yeah,
like really good at public speaking,
yeah, and
and they just really care about religion.
the intensely religious life as well was also associated a lot with kind of physical um, sort of depriving yourself of sort of physical pleasures and kind of almost I mean how monks used to sort of
Well, like,
live.
in a way that's sort of difficult for humans in general, but it's
Mm,
something that is especially difficult and therefore especially rewarding for what we might call like like a what's it like if an ordinary person with ordinary needs and urges gets such and such fulfillment from religion and sort of religious abstinence, how much fulfillment then would a person with even stronger needs and desires
yeah.
be fulfilled by religion?
Mm,
Now, like if you have such and such instinct for gluttony, like what's it like greater the instinct for gluttony, does that not also when you moderate yourself, even when you fast, does that not like is the benefit of that not also increased? I feel like.
yeah. And I guess another point we can make is that it's reading this. It's maybe people say, I don't know, 500 years ago, 600, sort of a long time ago, thought this was literally true. That whether it is or not, I don't know. Whether the world was made in 7 days, but the thing is, they didn't really need to know any more than that because I mean, the fundamental
Well,
part of
yeah,
it isn't it
because
that.
back in the Middle Ages, your worries and about the ways and the method and the time that the world was made.
Mm,
Your worries is about making sure that you don't starve in the wintertime.
yeah, and I mean, people
Also, I just
go on.
gonna say is also is like I feel like God very much like always like the way that he like explains things to us always appropriate to our understanding. Like I feel like if the Bible did not exist until like if some great prophet received like all the revelations of the universe and whatever and like wrote down the Bible like today, I feel like God would like in the book of Genesis would almost be sort of like more. I feel like you'd almost be sort of like Lovecraftian, right? Because like the way that like the point of Genesis is to sort of describe the power of God, right? In a very
Mm,
impressive way. And for people, thousands of years ago, this was the most impressive thing they could comprehend.
yeah,
People today, the most impressive thing would be, like behold, you have seen the ancientness of the world in which you live, the innumerable millions and billions of years,
yeah.
and such and such and such, and from the dust of stars are all things made, and I am older still. You know,
Mm,
all the great vastness and what billions of miles stretch out in every direction. And yet I care about this, and yet I care about you. Like I am so great, and the universe is so great, and yet I condescend to Earth, and I take a special care for you people.
yeah.
And like sort of like making humanity feel small and big at the same time. I feel like is sort of the point of this story, and maybe we just ought to keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, it emphasises the creation of Earth as central to God's creation, doesn't it? As the story of the formation of kind of everything.
Okay.
It's not leaving. It's not sort of. Yeah, I mean, we were central to humanity was central to God's perception in the world. Humans were made in God's image.
Yeah, and of course, like every religion has their own sort of like explanation for that. In my particular religion, it's not just that like oh we are the children of God because we are His chosen or something. It's in my religion, which is Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we say or our sort of doctrine is that like oh no, humanity is literally God's children in the sense that like God was once something like a human, and by being like really really righteous, that's how he got all of the powers and stuff that he has today.
Mm.
And he wants us to be really really righteous so that we can become something like him.
Yeah. Well, I also think at the same time though, to be able to create all of this in 7 days or however long, just to be able to create it, sort of separates God from humanity in a way. I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be able to sort of attain this level, but
Well,
that's
no,
all
is
in
that
terms of
well?
doctrinal dispute
I
stuff.
don't want to get off on like a terrible religious tangent.
Yeah.
So, are you rubbing your microphone or something? There's like some. It sounded like a pencil or something on your side,
Well, I can't hear anything. Not that I know.
like two pieces of cardboard rubbing together.
Um. Oh, I think I know what it is. I'll try and Anyway, carry on. I'll try and move less. I think that might be to do with it.
Oh, was it
Trying to,
just you were rubbing your chair?
no, I was just trying to like readjust stuff, audio.
Oh, okay. That that makes it. Okay, so it's like the thing I was gonna say is like I don't want to go off into too much of a like particular like a sectarian tangent or
Mm.
something. But like it's not that humanity in its present state can attain anything like godhood. It's like no, all that sort of stuff comes like, after the resurrection.
Yeah.
That's when you become like an immortal being anyway. Even then, it's like not for everyone. It's just for like a like not small, but it's just for like a particular group of like the most righteous people. And like the people that are slightly like less righteous than them just get to have like a paradise.
Mm.
And the people who are like then just most of the people in general, like everyone who like isn't a complete monster gets to have like a slightly less nice paradise than that. And then there's just like a tiny amount of like the worst people. Not only the absolute worst people end up like in hell. We
Yeah.
don't have like and like what our vision of hell is pretty much is like it's almost like being like it's almost like ceasing to exist. It's literally just like an empty black void. You have nothing but your own thoughts.
Well, it's hell is almost for people who are people who have chosen the self above God, and of course, if you choose the self above God, you see what the fruits of that will bore. You're it's going to be a miserable existence to say the least.
Yeah.
Because if God is everything good, then to abandon that and choose the self instead, and think, oh, I can do all this on my own by my own means, and you're kind of putting away at your own foundations. And yes, I don't think hell was like a burning sort of pit of fire or anything like that.
And I'm not so sure that it's like cold either.
No.
I feel like Dante describing like the worst bottommost part of hell as just like sort of empty void of ice is like semi-accurate, but I feel like even that's sort of too much substance for damnation. It's like really is just like an infinite black void in all directions where just because I feel like the worst thing you could do to a truly awful person just be to let them sit in a dark room with nothing but their own conscience to bother them.
Mm.
The thing is, like, as resurrected, perfected beings, like, they would have that conscience that are to bother them, even if they didn't have it in life.
Yeah. And
because that is something. It's like like not everybody gets saved, not everybody goes to heaven, but body does get resurrected and probably incurs as much pain for the wicked as it does, as it does what we might call pleasure or uplifted wholesomeness for the righteous.
yeah, it's interesting because the Catholic conception of purgatory is almost talks about that very same thing, how it's without God. It's sort of like an empty abyss, very sort of dark, and but it's.
Well, I believe that's just like the first bit of purgatory is just like to make you humble, because the whole point of purgatory is like it's where it's like if you lived like a sinful life but you're not worthy of hell, like yeah, you could go to heaven, you just got to suffer for a bit first.
Yeah. Well, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, neither of us are Catholics, but I guess in their conception, if the bottom of purgatory would be sort of almost like an abyss and really dark, that's almost, it's almost hell. It's almost kind of state of being without God.
It's like, yeah, I'm not Catholic, but from what I know is like their idea of purgatory is like, yeah, the bottom bit is like an empty black abyss.
Mm.
You just stay there until you're lonely. Basically, the point is like, well, if you really want to get up to heaven and go be with God, you've got to, and like in between the emptiness of purgatory and heaven, it's like all like fire and miserable and like challenges and broken glass, etc. It's like you literally have to climb through a flaming plane of broken glass
Yeah,
or to escape the empty darkness and end up in heaven. Is like that's what I think. Not aware enough. We got a Catholic on, he could correct us.
yeah. I mean, that's it's funny really because it's the middle layer, isn't it? That's the fiery pits, but it's always conceived of that being hell.
Yeah, because Protestants are stupid. I'm kidding a bit, of course, but I've never been Catholic, but I grew up with a lot of Catholic friends, living in Southern Illinois, near St. Louis. So I very much do have like a good bit of bias in that direction.
Mm,
Like wherever my church is not concerned, it's like
yeah, I think.
basically as I've got like a hierarchy. It's like my church is at the top. There's then there's Catholics, and
Hmm.
then there's Jews. That's not for any kind of terribly religious reason though. That's just because I've got like some Jewish family. It's like that's just nepotism. I put the Jews high in the hierarchy for pure nepotistic reasons.
Mm,
Uh, why I'm still kind of strict about that. It is like a semi-religious thing because it's like Orthodox Jews only.
yeah, I
Like
mean, I
atheist
think the
Jews,
definition of
progressive Jews, it's the
Protestantism's.
worst.
Go on.
So I was gonna say, it's like my church, then Catholics, then Orthodox Jews, Muslims, and then Puritans, and then Lutherans, and then anyone underneath Lutherans is just not even worth my time of day.
Gosh, you rank different faiths above Puritans. That must be you must very much despise them. I'm guessing.
I don't despise them as much as I despise Lutherans.
What's your what do you
That,
not like
that
so much about Lutherans then?
not much. I don't really despise either of them. It's just they're not my church, and they both teach a real Christian because like you don't believe the Trinity or whatever. Catholics were like that sometimes, but Catholics were usually like, oh yeah, Protestants are mean. They don't see us as real Christians either. You want to be friends? Yeah.
Did did Turnip Seed run you the wrong way or something? Squire Turnip.
Turnip does, but it's not because of any religious opinion he's expressed. It's just because he's got that
Yeah,
horrible,
that
like
shirt.
the
Yeah.
infamous Jim Crow and slavery T-shirt.
Mhm.
And it's just like, no, no, it's just a joke. I don't care. I am a what's it? It's like yeah, it's like it, just no. Jim Crow and slavery are wrong, and you can't wear. You should not be allowed to wear a T-shirt like even jokingly approving of those horrible things.
Mm. You have got to recognise though that in a way the LDS Church is a product of Protestantism. If you consider the people that the people that actually founded the religion or the branch.
Well, like yeah, I am aware of that. It's like, well, yeah, but sort of the whole point was that they, like the whole point of it though is sort of is like we've got a strict hierarchy and we've got a priesthood and bishops and stuff. Just sort of, well, I understand that many European forms of Protestantism have that sort of thing, but in America they don't. American idea of Protestantism is basically just the Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Basically infinite schisms, infinite sectarianism, and there's no idea of ordaining anyone. It's just like sort of like weird and chaotic and horrible.
Mm.
There's no revelation outside aside from like the Quakers, but of course, a lot of early LDS people came from the Quaker Church, so that's no surprise.
I mean, the Quakers reject church attendance entirely, don't they?
No, they don't. They just reject. The Quakers do have churches.
They
It's
have
just that
meeting
they don't
halls, don't
have
they?
like it's just that they've not got like a strict sort of like setup the way that most others do. It's
Yeah.
like the way that what Quakers do on Sunday. Um, like they begin. I believe, like what most Quakers do on Sunday is, if I'm correct. It's like they go to the meeting hall. They sort of pray and meditate in a circle, and they're hold on.
Yeah, and going back.
I
Oh.
as I was saying about the Quakers, is like as far as I'm aware, it's like they sort of sit in a circle and they're just like, I feel like God wants us to do this.
Mm. Yeah, they can't.
Uh, you're saying?
Going back to the I guess going sort of taking this back to the point of what we were reading, or perhaps what we'll get to,
Yes.
is to do with the
A
creation of.
long tangent.
Well, I guess we're going to end up getting onto the creation of humanity, and did God intend for all of these divisions to break out? Well, I don't suspect so, and
I
it's
believe that
but it
humanity is supposed to have free will. So like what's it? I don't think that he necessarily intended for all of like what has happened in history to happen. I feel like he definitely intended for it to be allowed to happen.
yeah. Well, the state we are in today is a product of humanity, not of God. We created the mess.
It's more nefarious than that. It's if it was a product of humanity, it would be like more animalistic and what's it? I feel like the ideal lifestyle of the 1950s would have been more of a product of humanity. It's like football on Sunday, to have a family with 3 kids, live in a suburban house, and buy all these products. There are some wholesome elements to that, but there's a lot of corporate nonsense as well.
Yeah,
Whereas the modern world is, I like feel like the modern world is more of a product of Satan, because all of those wholesome elements of the 1950s lifestyle, which was more what we might call human nature,
yeah,
completely cut out, and it's just like the worst, most nastiest. Like there's no family or anything anymore. It's just completely corporate. Just consume product. Then
yeah.
don't even like almost more like I almost feel like the evil corporate overlords are less intelligent nowadays because, back in the 1950s, they were encouraging people to have kids.
Mm.
Does our consumers don't have kids, there will be no consumers in the future for our product.
So yeah,
Whereas the evil overlords today just, trying to get as many people as possible to consume the product right now.
mm.
I feel
I,
like that's a sign of low intelligence
I mean, it was
on their behalf.
for the wrong intentions, but the kind of what it ended up being with the means, the encouragement of more people having kids was a wholesome thing. But what's happened now, yeah, as you say, perhaps these the short-term desire for profit has ended up um, with sort of desiring families to have fewer kids and sort of single mums sort of on the consumer market to profit these companies. So it's kind of removed even the accidental good aspects of it.
And well, I feel like that's a sign that it's not just humans being animalistic anymore. I feel like it's like actually Satan corrupting the world at this point. I feel like certainly large sections of history were were caused by humans, but I feel like it is absolutely like Satan is doing everything he possibly can currently.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's something I struggle with sometimes is sort of thinking of what's the most sort of human thing. Well, it's human things kind of, when you think of them, are actually good. It's the corruption that you can have from um, Satan. That's, when that humanity is turned sort of was turned to evil, I suppose.
Although I would say I take a slightly less rosy view of humanity than you. I would say like humanity without God and without the devil is an animal the same as any other. We're never going to do terrible things. Humanity left to its own devices would never do terrible things, but it would never do great things either. Now, it'd probably have like a similar social structure to like horses, like a prime female and a prime male in charge. It's a couple of lesser females that all get to mate with that prime male, and he just chases off all the young boys when they grow up and mature, so that he doesn't have to compete with them. And we'd never really amount to much. Whereas,
Yeah.
like God shows up and he's like, basically lifts us, gives us all of civilization. Then the devil's also there, and he's trying to. I think the devil wants something like a civilization as well. He just wants something corrupt and evil, like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah. Don't take my sort of my optimism there before as like a view of where humans sort of at core are good. I as a Protestant believe they are, humanity is in a fallen state, and is corrupted, and there will be no amount of sort of virtue or anything or good works can make people perfect. And
I suppose is what's the thing that I'd say is like, well, yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but it would be good enough. And also is like, well, I feel like the whole faiths versus works thing is sort of a false dichotomy, because I'd say there's no faith without works, and there are no works without faith.
I say the works come from your faith.
Yeah. I feel like that's not very helpful to people who struggle with faith. Like people like Yiz, like people who just can't. They feel like it's physically impossible for them to have faith.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like there is definitely a certain kind of person. It's like fake it till you make it is kind of real, I think.
Yeah.
That I feel like faith can come from works just as much as works can come from faith.
Well, there was that whole idea, which has been discussed recently, of kind of LARPing yourself into something, into being serious about something. So people who, many people who say, as we were discussing before, like with Orthodox Christianity, who are practicing it because they're supposedly they think it's based or whatever, they end up actually practicing that religion because they genuinely believe in it. So it can.
I feel like the key to that is just not half-assing it. Like the key to that is just being like really hardcore, what's it like to use the LARP metaphor. You want to be the dork in like styrofoam armor. You want to be the guy with like proper, like polished steel plate, all the little historical bits, and no giant silly spikes.
Yeah, and when you get back home, you don't kind of take it all off. You keep it on, and you make it a
Which I
core
suppose this
aspect
is
of
just
you.
like an armor of God metaphor almost, isn't it?
Yeah. You don't take the armor of God off when you're not being seen by anyone. You keep it on, at all times.
Yeah. Okay, so this has been a very wonderful tangent, but as I believe you said nearly 15 minutes ago, we need to get back to the verses.
Yes, continue. I'll let's try and get through. I don't know, 5 verses or something.
Well, let's try and get to the end of the chapter at least, maybe, and then you can read chapter 2, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, and God said, "Let the waters under heaven be gathered up unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. Again, that's something rather similar to the Egyptian creation myth where Amun-Ra raises the land up out of the sea. God called the land earth. Gathering together of the waters he called the seas. God saw it, and it was good. God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, a fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. The earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and tree yielding fruit. Seed was in itself after his kind. God saw that it was good. You know, and it's like they keep calling these plants he, it, or they.
Mm.
Very much reminds me, you know, it's like I feel like that is something that is sort of something older types of English borrow from Latin, you know, which is the default gender, the masculine.
Yeah.
Only ever call something feminine when you know for certain in particular should be brought back into modern English.
Yeah, and it almost doesn't make grammatical sense to say they and to replace his with they. It kind of ruins the meaning of the sentence.
Mhm.
Carry on.
Like, yeah, I do understand English does change, and it's not. It's only slightly confusing when a single person is called they, but or like a single object. But like, do feel like, you know what? There's a part of me that almost just straight up wants to abolish it from the English language. It's like, no, 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 no. That bench, that's he. Rock, that's he. Like French or Spanish, where like, oh, that spoon is a she. No, 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 no. Like Latin. Well, no, not Latin. No, just if it's an inanimate object, it's a he. If it's animal, also a he, unless you know for certain it's female, then it's a she. And well, with humans, it's he or she.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, people who tend to have an attachment to their object, say like a ship or a car, they tend to see it as a she.
I suppose you're right. So I suppose it's like what's it like? The inanimate objects are he, like a house
Mm.
or a table or a bench. But vehicles, conveyances, oh, that's a she. Like a car is a she, a boat is a she, etc.
Yeah, when people get attached to their to these things, they end up calling it a she.
And of course, I suppose the funny thing with that is that like even women will do that.
Mm.
Like there's a certain kind of woman I admit that, you know, like we'll call her car. It's like, oh, this is my car, Roger. He's so nice. Most women will still call their car a she. Like, oh, ain't she a beauty?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
same way that a guy would. And maybe that's, I don't know. That might be part of my theory that all women are secretly lesbian. It's like, yeah, it's not quite right to speak of such things when studying the Bible. So let's get on with it. Morning and the evening were the third day. God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven, of the heaven. Divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." Astronomy, basically. God was just like, make a big calendar.
Mm. Yes. You still there?
Yeah, sorry, just in the
Sorry?
Wi-Fi. Yes. And let there be lights. Wait, no. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven, and of heaven. Oh, dead heaven. Lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of heaven, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
like you're cutting out on my end, or?
No, I'm sorry.
That's alright.
Wait a minute. Oh yeah, sorry. Rule the day over the night. Okay. And to wait. Did I already read 18? And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Okay. The evening and the morning were the fourth day. God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly." No, hold on. The moving creatures that hath life, a fowl that may fly above the earth, the open firmament of heaven. God created whales, every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and multiply, fill the waters of the sea, let the fowl multiply in the earth." The evening and the morning were the fifth day. God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creatures of land, and let earth bring forth a living creature after his kind, and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind," and it was so. God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. Saw that it was good. God said, "Let us make man in our own image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over the earth, and over everything that creepeth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Now, let's look here. After our likeness.
Yeah.
Us make, yeah. This is one of the neat little bits that leads to you know, like some of the best discussions in theology come from this. So in my religion, when God is saying, "Let us," our, you know, because well, it's because we believe that, you know, like God and Jesus are two completely separate, distinct entities. You know, like Jesus is literally the Son of God, and therefore there are two, you know, distinct, two separate souls, two separate bodies. You know, they could not be one, for the same reason that, you know, like we cannot be one. Well, not literally be one with God. You know, we can be one will with God. And that's rather what Christ is, you know, because he's perfect. He wants to do the same things as God. They are one goal, but they are not one soul. You know, it's like the old metaphor of the three-leafed clover. You know, it doesn't really make. Oh, hold
on. Well, I'm not sure which. I think it was verse 27 you're referring to. But my own interpretation of his own image. I mean, image is something that.
I didn't quite finish my. Sorry, my dad just came in, told me that we're making venison hamburgers today, and he is like, lovely. "You're in charge of that, son. I'll make the beef, you make the venison." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Very nice.
Because I'm like slightly particular about the way that I like to make burgers, and so this way, if I ruin them, Dad can just blame me.
I'm guessing it's. I'm guessing it's probably. What kind of temperature are we looking in Alabama?
Oh, it's we don't actually have a grill. It's not going to be a barbecue. My dad got an electric grill recently that we use in the house.
Oh, okay.
It's about. I mean, it is a perfectly appropriate weather though for. I wish we were cooking outdoors because the house is going to get all hot up.
Yeah.
Let me check. It's an electric grill. It's not as if we're cooking with gas. I mean, that'd be more convenient in some ways, but it'd heat up the house worse. Let's see. Oh, it's not terrible. It's only 89. It's only 90 degrees.
90 degrees. Okay, that's
Let me see what. Yeah, let me see what that is in Celsius, though. That's not. It doesn't tell me automatically. Hold
Yeah,
on.
sorry, I've adopted the continental way and understand Celsius a little more easier.
I don't worry. Celsius is one of the few metric measurements that is acceptable and sensible.
Mm.
Uh, Unlike money, the old way of doing money. Actually, you know what? Lindy Beige. Have you heard of Lindy Beige?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Lindy Beige.
My one of my favorite Lindy Beige videos is when he explains old British money, because I'm like, my goodness, old old 12 pence to a shilling, like that makes much more sense than modern money.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
because you can divide it into thirds, and it's like, oh, base 12.
We'll get onto that topic, I'm sure, in another truck cast if we ever make it.
Yeah. So let me see what 90 degrees is in
Yes, you hold me in suspense.
let me see what that is in the horrible units. Welcome. Where's the darn that little degrees circle? Where is it?
You could
The
just get
tiny
a
little phone keyboard.
like a converter up, couldn't you?
And 90 F to C. Okay, 32 degrees Celsius.
That's no, that's. I think that's just a bit too hot for me. But
It's a
yeah.
bit too hot for me, friend. It's yeah, no, it's
Well,
I don't like it either.
well, I feel sorry
I
for you
miss
because you've
living
had
in.
to, you traveling around all across America, going from Alaska to Alabama is
It wasn't straight. We stopped in Illinois for a while first.
yeah.
Though I gotta say, like, before I lived in Alabama, I thought Illinois was so hot and miserable. You
Mm.
know, at like 25 degrees Celsius in the summer, but not 25. It's more like 27, 28. You know, like I thought Illinois was so hot and sticky, but then I moved here. No, and it's like my, you know, it's like no, it's like you want to know how much I miss Alaska. I looked up once. It was like it got to be like 105 degrees here one day
Yeah.
with 90% humidity, not a cloud in the sky.
Oh.
And I looked up, yeah. So it was humid. It literally is humid as like as a rainy day, but there wasn't a single cloud in the sky, no hope of rain. And I looked up what the temperature and humidity was back in Alaska. It was only 85 degrees, and, and the humidity was only 15%.
Yeah. I mean, it's 65 degrees Fahrenheit here over in England. To me, that's I I'm perfectly fine with this. In fact, it could probably be about 5 degrees less. But yeah, I feel sorry for you dealing with hundreds um, for Fahrenheit.
Oh gosh, it's not even July yet. It's not even August yet. It's like it's bad now.
Yeah,
How much worse do you think it would be in August? You know. But of course, the people that I feel the most sort of like pity and sympathy for is definitely the people in India, right? You know, because
yeah.
at the absolute height of summer, parts of India where it gets up to like 120 degrees. Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah, awful.
Or what is that, like 45 degrees Celsius?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just the heat as well, it's the kind of humidity, isn't it? It's it
I
makes it
mean, at
even
least if
worse.
it was like 100 and like if it's 110 degrees in Arizona,
Yeah,
it's not nearly as miserable as 110 degrees in the Amazon rainforest.
yeah. Anyway,
It's like, yeah. If I was British, I would take every summer holiday in like the dry Sierras of Spain. I just like not straight off to the desert.
yeah.
I'm just gonna sit on the I'm just gonna sit in a bloody mountainside and dry out like a portobello ham. Well, I don't think no portobello's mushrooms, but you know what I mean. Have you ever seen like
Yeah.
those fancy Spanish hams that like
Oh,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
literally let it sit in the wind and just
Mm,
dry out?
yeah.
Don't even cook it. It's just a raw piece of pork hanging on a hook. It just becomes edible because it gets all dried out enough. Like if you let it, yeah.
I think Spain has a bad reputation for British tourists, so I think I better not add to their population. You know,
You turn into a lobster after a while.
yeah, sort of beer-bellied, sort of pub visiting, bold British men, sort of hanging around.
Doesn't even bother to eat the local food.
No,
Has everything with chips.
they've literally. I saw this on a news article that they've built their own kind of colonies almost. Fish and chip shops and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah. Which is just like so depressing. If you're gonna go to Spain, can you at least eat like some shrimp and calamari
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
Spanish?
Well, it's a very working class destination, I think, parts of Spain.
I suppose, yeah. The more fancy British people go to Italy and Greece, don't they?
Yeah, for like a culture,
But
a
Spain
cultural
and
trip.
France are right across the channel, so that's where
Mm.
you don't even need a bloody airplane to go to Spain. You can just take the ferry.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, there's a culture in I think there's a very working class culture in Britain with men is that they like to wear shorts even if it's like if it's about 20 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that
Same
is.
thing in America. No,
Yeah.
no, same thing in America. But of course, it's like what's it like when me and my dad were living in Alaska? We do it even when it was like -20.
Yeah.
It's like literally, like literally freezing outside, and we got a big heavy coat on. We got shorts underneath.
You just have
It's
people
like
giving you very funny looks.
no, because everyone else would do it too.
I don't know about you Alaskans. Very strange.
Oh gosh, you and I, it's like you and I. We need to go on like after we do like the tour of Europe and the American South road trip and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing. You and I need to go on like a Pacific Northwest road trip, through like oh gosh, like probably not California. We have to skip California because
Yeah,
it's the
we'll
worst.
skip that.
Oh
We'll-
no, we'll skip the actual like lower 48. Just go through Alaska and Canada. Just Alaska
Yeah.
and Western Canada.
Or we could just take a huge diversion around sort of Seattle and Portland.
No, we'll go see the redwood forest in like Northern California and Southern Oregon, and that'd be it.
Yeah, we could take like a detour through Idaho instead.
Oh yeah, and we can what we can do in Idaho is we can go to Rick's College, and I can tell you all about how like yeah, basically just like in Idaho, something like a quarter of the population has the surname Ricks. You'd like to know the reason why?
Go on.
It's not a quarter of the whole population. It's more like a quarter of the LDS population. And the reason why is because there was a guy with the surname Ricks who settled there back when the church allowed polygamy,
Yeah.
and he had like 7 wives, and each one of them gave him
Oh.
like 12 children.
Yeah, I see.
And like each one of those kids had like 12 kids. Each of them had like 12 kids,
Mm.
and so now there's just like it's kind of like certain parts. It's kind of like in the Carolinas, like where you get like like an entire town of people that all have the same last name, and they have to go on like epic love quests across America just to find someone who's not related to them.
Yeah. I hope that's not the reason.
Something
Go on.
something similar but slightly less absurd is also true of Idaho.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it's not the same case over here in England with all the sort of really popular names because you get so many sort of Smiths.
Well, actually, it is. It's just a long, long time ago. Like, and it's not so much all the names, but it's with Irish and Scottish names.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, bear in mind surnames. When did they start becoming like a common practice? It can't have been before the sort of medieval
but
period.
what's it like? Trying to think of the Irish. Basically, because like the reason why the Celtic surnames, like the O'Hare and such, reason why like all those people actually are related, and the reason for that is because in the old Celtic culture, is to get like these great Mongol type warlords that would have like 10 wives and 100 concubines, and each one of those would have like 12 kids.
Yeah.
And so when you have like 10 wives and 100 concubines that give you 12 children each, there's going to be a lot of people with the same surname in a few generations, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like sort of as a result, Ireland actually, it's Irish are basically like low IQ Jews. They low genetic diversity, high rhetorical skill, and a vague passion for music, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. I mean, the most common Irish surnames are sort of the Murphys and O'Neills and that kind of thing, isn't it?
Well, that's common in the UK, yeah.
Mm.
The things I was well actually is some Irish folk heroes like their existence has actually been proven via genetics.
Yeah.
What's it like? I'm sure like Cuchulainn. You ever heard of Cuchulainn?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're basically uh, like through looking at DNA and people with a certain surname. I forget which one. I'll remember it if I read it though. So I'll just look up like a list of Irish surnames.
Did you send me like a folk music video or something about this person?
Oh yes, about Cuchulainn once. Yes.
Mm.
Anyway, but there's like a particular one. There's a particular Irish surname that everyone, one of the O's, O something or other. Because O literally means grandson of such and such important person.
Mm. I think once we finish this tangent, we'll get back onto the
No,
reading.
let me see. Let me see. Oh, is it O'Connor? Oh, oh dear.
Oh yeah, there's lots of O'Connors. Yeah.
Yeah. O'Brien, no. Oh dear, no, there's too many of them. No, so let's just get back to the Bible.
Yeah. Let's get back
Oh
to the point
no,
of the.
gosh, my thing that I was talking about actually. No. Shoot, no, back to the beginning of this tangent, right? Because we read the bit where it's like God said,
Oh
"Let us
yes,
make
yes.
man in our image."
You were going to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my original tangent that I was going to talk about is like, it's like in my church we don't. Well, it's not that we don't believe in the Trinity at all, because we do believe in like God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit as sort of like the most important three beings in heaven, and they sort of like plot together to like do everything. But we still see them as like three genuinely distinct entities. It's like they cooperate. They're not one will.
Yeah.
Well, not in a literal sense. In a metaphorical sense, like, oh yeah, like they all want the same thing because they're all righteous, but, you know,
So
that's
just
sort of
three
like
gods
it.
then. Yeah.
Not really three gods, It's like Heavenly Father is the only one that we worship,
Mm.
and the Holy Spirit doesn't have a physical body, so he's not really a god.
Yeah.
More like a powerful angel. Not even really powerful. He's just well, he hasn't got a physical body, so he can't be all that powerful. He's more like just an important angel.
I mean, does the LDS Church view the kind of all three gods as sort of infinite, or do they kind of thought they had like a start date?
Uh,
I mean, do they think the sun
like
was
the thing, like I've told you
created?
before, it's like, well, Jesus definitely does, because Jesus was created by Heavenly Father, the same as everyone else. But of course, it's like, well, we believe that. Have I ever explained like the premortal, our belief of like a premortal life?
No.
So you know how there's like the afterworld of like where people go when they die.
Yeah.
That there's some place, pretty much the same place. That like people existed in heaven even before they are born. Like all of our souls are billions of years old even before the creation of the universe.
Mm.
and we're just sort of in heaven with God, and just like sort of chatting and all, just sort of hanging out in heaven. God was like, all you angels are like pretty nice. I'd like it if you had physical bodies like me, so I'm going to create the world so that you can, through some vaguely similar experiences to what I went through, so that you can get physical bodies and learn things and grow as people.
Mm. I guess I sort of viewed man in his own image. I interpreted that as he kind of well, like with a camera, if you take a photo of an image, it's kind of a moment which you've captured. It's God, but the actual thing itself, which is God, is like kind of it's far different to the actual image itself because it's infinite. It will always be there. There'll be things that will change, things that alter.
I mean, it's like after a certain point, we're not going to change, alter terribly much, are we? Because we're going to get
No,
resurrected eventually.
no, but I guess my point was,
Oh, like
yeah, go on.
so that is some stuff, but also is like it's not just that. It's also it's like man and woman. God says us. Well,
Yeah, it's all right.
basically, my church sort of
Yeah.
interprets that as this is basically being the only time that Heavenly Mother is referred to in the scriptures.
But in fact,
Oh,
she's
because for God to make men and women as separate entities, there must be separate entities in heaven. If we have a heavenly Father, why would we not have a heavenly Mother as well?
yeah.
Uh,
I
that's
guess
kind of
my,
like
my
the extent of
sorry, go on.
that's kind of the extent of our doctrine about her. They were just like, she exists. She's kind of vaguely referred to here. The fact that God doesn't talk about her explicitly very often is probably because either because it's not relevant to our lives on Earth, or maybe he's just like really jealous and protective of her and doesn't want us talking about her too much. We'll just not talk about her very much.
I guess my point with the with what I was trying to say is kind of a response to your idea that man can become or kind of achieve like sort of an almost
Man
God
doesn't
state.
do it in and of himself.
Yeah.
God has to, it's like, have to very much subject ourselves and obey God and all that sort of thing.
Mm.
And, it's like, because it is very much God raising you up to his level. It is not you climbing up to his level. You are weak, and he is what makes you strong.
That's
I am weak, and he is what makes me strong, etc.
that sounds almost Calvinist in nature from you. It's not very Mormonist in nature.
You'd be shocked. I don't actually hate Calvinists. It's like they don't seem to believe in free will, and that's my only real beef with them.
Mm.
No, it's yeah.
Well, maybe they.
I'm sure that you could.
I don't want to speak too much for the Calvinists, but maybe they do believe in free will, but they kind of is it that they choose, well, that they believe humans will always choose sin rather than good, perhaps, and it's only through God they
I
can
think that
achieve
I
good.
think that's. I think you may be being slightly too charitable. I want to be terribly uncharitable. I don't know. We might have a Calvinist subscriber. No hard feelings. Just don't like the idea of predestiny or predetermination. It's like no, humans have free will, and so like we can definitely do things to like mess up. So, I don't think humans are all that powerful, so I don't think it's necessarily that we can do things to mess up God's plan. But I feel like God maybe intentionally has created a world in which we can influence things and like yeah. I feel like we live in a world somewhat of our own. So, majority of human suffering is orchestrated by human hands and is very much our own fault, and God doesn't really have anything to do with it.
Well, us as humans love stories, and God kind of part of the 7 days thing as well is perhaps it's a story in and of itself. It's like
Yeah.
it's these things happen, and there's sort of in our own sort of world that we live in today. God could very much, I'm sure he could very much sort of just through his own will kind of clamp down or just wither away all sort of elements of sin. I don't know, or remove.
It wouldn't be wholesome for him to, because like
No,
sort of the point of life is like it's not satisfying to just be perfect from beginning to end. It's like no, you gotta struggle. You gotta,
hmm
yeah.
and because of the
Unless,
mistakes our original humans made, so many centuries or millennia ago, we're in this state um, that we will always sort of be conflicted between between sin and between virtue, and kind of
I
the
suppose,
the
I suppose
stories
the
come
only
from
area
that.
where I might agree with Calvinists is I feel like the old bit with Adam and Eve in the tree. I feel like that probably was somewhat intentional on God's, like, from God's end. I feel like God always sort of did want them to do that. It's just that, like, well, uh, not want, but like he knew it was necessary. But he also, didn't want to, like, didn't want to rob them of their innocence sort of right away. So he made it sort of a matter of choice, rather than creating them with sort of all knowledge of good and evil from the beginning. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I will have to. Unfortunately, I will have to go in about 10 minutes. So, shall we try
Yeah,
and finish the
yeah. So
chapter?
let's power through. Let's power through the rest of through the rest of chapter one, and hopefully be ready for. Oh, good. We only got like 5 verses left. Right. So as I was saying, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. The image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and upon the fowl, oh no, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in the which is fruit of the tree yielding seed. Unto you it shall be given for meat. Every beast of the earth, every fowl of the air, everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every herb meat. I have given every herb, yeah. It was so. God saw that everything he made, and wait, God saw everything that he had made. Behold, it was very good. The evening and the morning were the sixth day.
And there we go. We got to it in a very roundabout and sort of tangent way, but we finished the first chapter.
And it was fun. I like doing
Yes.
this. I can't wait to do this again tomorrow if you have any time.
I hope I will be able to. Yeah. I'll see if I can. See if I'm free.
Also, is check your DMs on Instagram, because I want to know what you think about that comic book idea.
Oh yeah.
Dragon.
Sorry, I haven't checked my phone recently. Anyway,
Basically, it's
so go on.
just gonna say is like, so like how certain versions of the Thor comic books, Thor is not actually like a god. He's just a random guy who is worthy of wielding the hammer,
Yeah.
and so gets all the powers of the god. Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, I was just thinking, is like, what if we did that, but with King Arthur, and
Yeah. Yeah.
magical glowing red armor?
That's an idea. I mean, you're sort of fiction crew, you and Matt Lemon, so I could leave that
Yeah.
to you.
Well, dude, it's not as if, dude. It's not as if you weren't like a great writer. You're not fictionally minded, but that's fine because I am. So, if
Yeah, I
you and I
wasn't
work together, I'm sure
that
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 we
wasn't
could
meant
make
to.
like an epic book.
Yeah, I wasn't meant. That wasn't me having a go. That was just saying you're very good at that sort of thing. So I'll leave it to you.
You could be too if you wanted to.
I could do. Yeah. I mean, I never really grew up
A little
reading
faith
comic
in
books,
yourself.
so
It doesn't have to be comic books. It's like you can make like an
yeah.
ordinary book about a superhero. It's just it's like when people do, it's usually about something that pre-exists, like from the comic books already.
Mm.
Yeah. Ways, no. So it's. I guess it's about time to wrap up. Is I hope that you have a wonderful day and dinner with your family or something about this time.
Well, my sister's working at the moment, so we'll wait for her and
Ah,
have a late
ah.
dinner, 8 o'clock sometime. I think
8 o'clock's not terrible, but it's
it's not
not.
too bad. It's
I
very
hope that you
French.
guys have a pleasant, lovely evening. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, very French. Oh,
Same
yeah,
to
the
you.
terrible French. They just have like a. So I know that you're saying same to you about the good day, but it's. I was saying it's like a terrible French, and you're like same to you, and it's. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So I
yes.
suppose that's
Please,
everything.
please subscribe to the old Lobster channel.
Yeah, please subscribe to Number One Lobster on YouTube and Jürgen Stang on Rumble and whatever other stuff that we decide to diversify into.
Yes. Soon to overtake Obama.
Yeah. S. Remember that is Jürgen Stang spelt with a J because Norwegian is a cool language.
Indeed. And that's a wonderful place to end.